Hey, Shalom Markim, with Karma Kapash from GMS London, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Chachadash. Want to give double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and Shalom out there to the hopeful elect, pushing his truth in all sincerity. Back again with another video. New article here from The Guardian. And, it's like we've been saying, what, the agenda of these elites, how they're going to come into play. And you're seeing early signs, well, more early signs of it, kind of like a trial and error type of phase, I guess, because this won't, this ain't gonna be, you know, it's not gonna come to its head until further along down the line, right? When things are really bad, because things right now, they're bad for some. It's not bad for most, right? And the time's coming, pursuant to Daniel chapter 12 and verse 1, right? That the whole world is gonna go for a time of trouble such as never been. So we know things are gonna get real bad, right? So at this point in time, it's not that at that level yet. But you see these governments and these world organizations making moves, because the WHO are making moves to set uh you know legislations in place that make these governments complicit with lockdowns and things like this, funding these new ways of virusitic crimes, right? um so they're making their moves, man, and setting things in place uh, to get you people used to it, you know, to get you to comply, to get you to accept it, when it does eventually hit, when the shit does hit the fan, you know. So from the Guardian here, you've got UK ministers discuss voluntary price limits for basic foods, but rule out imposing caps, right? So like I say, it's just the start, Now the prices of food, everyone knows has gone up way beyond the inflation rates that we're supposed to be experiencing, right? For certain items and stuff, right? So, and obviously it affects the poor first, and more than anybody, right? And so our benevolent our benevolent governments, right, are looking to impose some sort of price restrictions on certain items, right? Now we told you this, when this place collapses, and CBDCs are introduced, and the MOTB is introduced, and you can't buy or sell without having that CHIP, the MOTB, without being connected to the new system, right, you're not gonna be able to get nothing, right? So if they're controlling all the food, all the pricing, right, because things are so mad, because your cash ain't worth nothing, and you have to be moved onto the new system. All right, and that's a form of control and manipulation, right? Food, is being used as a weapon to force people into, this certain situation that's going to arise in the earth, right? And we've mentioned it, during, I believe it's World War II, World War I, both, maybe. I have to go back and look, but they introduced those rationing cards, right? And because of food availability, and for the food prices, they were getting out of hand. So to be fair to everybody, they limited, they capped the price off for certain items, and they limited what you could purchase, right? And we've experienced some of that during the pandemic, restricting certain, the amount of certain goods you can buy of a certain item, and that's still going on here and there, right? And but now they're introducing price limiting, and things like that. Okay, so it's going back to that kind of method, but now we're in a digital world. We don't need ration cards. We don't need to have a book that you stamp to confirm that you got your rations for the week or whatever, right? Now, like I said, when these CDBCs is introduced, and the MOTBs, is released en masse, they can monitor and assign everything digitally, electronically, right? So that'll be the gateway to you getting such items. All right, like I said, this is just like a step on the way of getting there. All right, so but this is what they're talking about now. Like we said, they were going to get to this point eventually, right? So at the moment, right, it says here scheme would be at retailers' discretion. So they're going to get the power to the retailers, right? They're going to allow the retailers to decide whether or not they're going to do this or not, right? You know, you might find some that do. Probably the most of them ain't going to want to do this because they're going to lose money. Obviously, we know that they're all about their money, right? But, we'll just see, right? It says, scheme will be at retailers' discretion, says government, following talks between PM and Chancellor and the food sector. Ministers are working with supermarkets to voluntarily cap the price of basic food items in an effort to ease the UK's cost of living squeeze, but insists it is not considering imposing price caps. Not yet, right? With food and drink prices rising at the fastest pace in more than 40 years and no let up in sight, so it's not forecast to come down. All right, which is something. It may dip at some point. It may dip, but I tell you what, these level of prices is going to be cheap. These level of prices is going to be cheap. All right. You at some point you're gonna be talking about coming back to these days where things were cheap, even though it's not. The second Ezra chapter 16 verse 21 says, "Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth, and they shall think themselves to be in good case." And like I said, that was true for a point in time. He's living the high life, and that things were all right, mortgages and all this kind of stuff. It's right. But he says, and even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion, right? And that's all that's being developed in the earth or growing in the earth is this evil, man, right? Great confusion. So for many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, right? Food is going to be a problem. Access to food is going to be a problem. Whether you can afford it or whether you can find it, it's gonna be a problem, right? And the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy, right? So it's gonna become a problem, right? And these so-called expensive prices that we're dealing with now is gonna look cheap compared to how things are gonna go, right? Actually, let me get Revelation 6. Revelation chapter 6 verse 5, when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand, right? So this is effectively the effect or the curse of the black horse that's taking place in this society with the inflations and stuff, right? Which Esau is responsible for, right? The Most High is getting Esau to mess up everything in the earth, right? So these are the products of him, but this is represented by the black horse, right? And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Right? So this is representative of inflation, right? So a measure of wheat for a penny, when you look into it is 10 silver coins, right? Back then when it was written, that's what the penny converts into, right? But that will get you a measure of wheat, which is enough food for one person for a day, right? So if a man got paid 10 silver coins, that he could buy 1 day's worth of food, right? That's how much it would cost him. That's all he'd be able to afford, right? Now people's money is more than that right now. A measure of wheat is a volumetric, in volumetric terms is like what, 2 pints of milk, roughly, right? Something like that, right? It's not much. Is what I'm getting at, right? And so like I said, the 10 coins was like a daily wage for a man's work, right? And that's all he could afford. For a day's wage, he could only afford that. So people's money right now is more than that. You can still buy more than like a loaf of bread or something than for your daily wage, right? So the price is going to get way out of hand, and the government will come in and put price caps in, just like they did in the world wars, right? They will come and do that, Okay, but there will be a different system in place. It's not going to be, like I say, not going to be stamping cards. Right, but they are going to be limiting. They're going to take control of the food. They are going to be limiting what is on offer, what you can have, and how much it costs. Right, except that what it costs, not necessarily how much necessarily, but what it costs, because your pounds and your dollars, your traditional paper money is not going to be valid because it's not going to be worth anything at that point, right? So you can't just use that. You have to use a specific currency. These CBDCs, you're gonna have to use a particular currency, which is all programmable. So it can only purchase whatever it's programmed to purchase. So that level of control and restriction is going to be implemented. All right. So yeah, that's the Black Horse, right? So you break down, you go into chapter 6, and you put up in the Blue Letter Bible, and you go into the was it the concordance or whatever? Okay, you can look up these individual words, measure wheat for, measure wheat, penny, and it'll break it down to you. All right, let's go back here quickly. So with food and drink prices rising at the fastest pace in more than 40 years, and with no let up in sight, the Treasury and supermarkets have been discussing a possible voluntary scheme for maximizing prices for certain goods. These would likely to include essentials as bread and milk. Spirit, I mentioned bread and milk. I haven't fully read this article yet, so but yeah, bread and milk, right? Staples in this society, bread and milk. All right, maybe they can get in on some eggs. Put the bring the egg prices down. Anyway, suggestions that price caps would be introduced prompted some commenters to claim that Britain would be returning to 1970s style price control. So again, it's not unprecedented. This has happened before, but the scale and the severity of the situation is going to be on an unprecedented scale. Okay, pursuant to Daniel's 12:1, right? So we should get to that as well. All right, so like I said, it's happened before, and they can do it again, and they will do it again. Daniel chapter 12 verse 1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, right? So World War II, man, you can throw that out the window, man. There ain't gonna be nothing compared to this. All right, so if it happened then, in situations like that, you damn sure it's gonna happen in the time to come. All right, so such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. All right, so yeah, so it goes on to say Britain will be returning to 1970s style price controls, but government insiders insisted that any scheme would be voluntary for now, right? Asked about the proposals on BBC Sunday, blah, 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 blah. Steve Barclay says this: my understanding is the government is working constructively with supermarkets as to how we address the very real concerns about food inflation and cost of living, and doing so in a way that is also very mindful to the impact on suppliers. All right, the plan would appear to be similar to an agreement reached recently between the French government and the country's food retailers to set the lowest possible price on a number of everyday products for an initial 3 months. So it's not just going on here in the UK. Certain discussions that are being had and deals are being taking place in other countries, right? Under the agreement announced in March, retailers could select which items this applied to, and these are marked with a special logo. It is understood that at a recent meeting between the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt and supermarket chains, which an official called a brainstorming session, one idea floated was for a scheme that UK supermarkets could opt into. All right, left up the choice. A Treasury source is saying that food price inflation is much more resilient and difficult to get rid of than we anticipated, right? So they mean they're going to be around for a while, and get worse. So, however, officials say the government has no plans to cap the price of food, and that any resulting scheme would not be mandatory. They said that this was about talking to retailers about what could be done to keep prices as low as possible. The government is not considering imposing price caps A government spokesperson said any scheme to help bring down food prices for consumers would be voluntary at retailers' discretion. We know the pressure of households are under with rising costs while inflation is coming down. Food prices remain stubbornly high. Why? That's why the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have been meeting with the food sector to see what can be done. This everybody should already know. Oh, he's been a waffling now, isn't it? Okay. But you get the point. I'm not going to do the rest of that. There is no need. Alright, so like I said, they're flirting with the idea of these price restrictions or price maximizations or whatever, right? They're just stepping stones, man. Because in times of crisis, this is not we're not in a crisis per se, a major crisis per se right now. So they don't need to implement that as a mandatory thing. But in times of great crisis, deep crisis, now yeah, they have the power to do that, and they will, and they've done it before, right? So these are just stepping stones along the way there. You know, getting people in the mindset of these types of things, right? To get next. Let's get Genesis 47, right? And I've been bringing this out a lot recently, but yeah, this is part of the time in Egypt where the famine came in, right? And people were desperate for bread, desperate for food, right? Because like I said, there's a famine in the land, and Joseph in Egypt had stored up grain, and so he had control, or Pharaoh had control over the food that existed at the time in that area, and everyone had to come to Egypt for food, right? And everybody spent everything that they had, because no doubt it got expensive, right? You desperate for food, you didn't pay anything, right? And eventually, everything that they had came to naught. They didn't have anything left. But obviously the famine was still prevailing. So, what did they do? They offered up their bodies, man, their service, their servitude, their loyalty to Pharaoh, man. Okay, so basically, Pharaoh gained control of the people, and that's exactly what these governments, will do with the power that they have, man, and the scenario that they're, creating. All right, but anyway, Genesis 47 verse 18 says, when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord how that our money is spent. My Lord also have our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land, right? So, these governments are talking about the poor and, how they've been hit hardest and struggling, whatever. So this benevolency this perceived benevolency that they're showing, we're trying to protect the poor, so they, keep so they can eat and whatever, right? Because otherwise, these people are going to starve to death. Now, more people are going to find themselves in that poor category. Okay, as they're, people are losing their jobs, as their money is being debased, while inflation's, tearing things up, right? So more and more people are going to find themselves in that category. There's only going to be the poor and the elite. That's the two categories that's being created. The middle class is gone, or is going. The last legs of the middle class is going, and so there's going to be two categories now. So everybody's going to be begging for bread. Okay, from the powers, the governments, right? Protesting that you need to do something about this, otherwise we're going to die. We're going to starve to death because we can't afford food, we can't get food. So you have to come and step in and help. All right. So wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto the Pharaoh, and give us seed. Right. So now they're just giving themselves up so they can be continuously supplied with some type of food, bread, seed. Right. And that's the situation you're gonna find yourself in when you take the MLTB. You're gonna be, you know, well, let me get it. Let me actually, because I'm thinking on it, right? Deuteronomy 28 verse 48 says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in the want of all things. Right. So you're going to be supplied by your governments, by these elites, with everything that you possibly, everything, not everything that you possibly need, right? Because we know the WF is working on the whole you will own nothing, because you won't have anything. Just like the Egyptians, they didn't have anything. They didn't own anything anymore. They gave it all up. Right? BlackRock are taking everybody's houses and stuff, man. So they ain't gonna have anything, right? So you're gonna be reliant on the government to provide you with your sustenance. Right? So in the want of all things, that's the position that the people are gonna be put in. This curse is specifically talking about the Israelites, but the whole world is gonna be put into this type of situation. Like the elites know what they're doing, man, how to go about controlling the people. All right. So yeah, it says, shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in the want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And Esau planning that new yoke of iron, okay, which is going to be in the form of the C-hip, the MOTB. That's your new yoke. Okay, just as a digital one and not an iron one anymore. Okay, because we've already experienced this as Israelites. We already had the yoke of iron upon our necks during the transatlantic slave trade, right? But now Esau looking to, upgrade that yoke upon us and the rest of the world. Okay. So, finishing verse 19 here, Genesis 47 and 19 says, wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. Right? And this situation, pursuant to Daniel 12:1, is going to prevail over the people. And they're going to give themselves up to their governments and let the government run their lives, run everything, right? That's what they're going to do. They're going to allow them to, lord over them, essentially, like to provide for them. Because the people are not going to have any power in their hands, right? They're not going to be positioned to do nothing for themselves. All right? And that's why there's going to be a lot of chaos in the streets, man. All right, so, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became feral. So everything's going to become, these elites, they become these governments. Everything's going to be, under their control. All right. This is Isaiah 30 verse 1 says, woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Right? That walk to go down into Egypt, and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Right? So you're going to trust in oppression. You're going to trust in Egypt. You're going to trust in the system. You're going to trust Esau, right? Because this place represents our bondage. Right? And we're putting trust in those that oppress us, right? Thinking that, or being made to believe that they're not the oppressive people that they used to be, right? But this whole time, Esau been plotting and scheming to put you in deeper slavery, and putting you in this situation where you're going to take this MLTB and be destroyed, man, because, adding sin to sin, as it said here, the Lord has commanded us strictly not to take the MLTB, and yet people are going to find every excuse to take it. Okay, and not take heed to the warnings that, beginning with our elders and apostles, we've been, pushing out there, concerning the MOTB and the C-hip and how it plays its part in all of this, right? you're gonna find excuses to take it, because again, the family's gonna prevail over you because you have lack of faith. So you're gonna trust in Egypt, and you're gonna add sin to sin, right? You didn't inquire of the Lord. Okay, you trusted in this devil. You trusted in Esau, right? Verse 3 says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, right? People that trust in Esau and follow that line, okay, they're gonna be put to shame, man. You're gonna take the sea hip, and the Lord's gonna judge you for it. All right. And the trust in the shadow of Egypt, your confusion. All right. It's Revelation chapter 13 and 16. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Right. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Right. So this new system is not going to enable you to do things the old way, use the old currencies. Right. So if you want to eat, or you want to take, make opportunity of what the government is offering, guess what? You're gonna have to jump on the new system, on a new plan, on the new scheme, on the new benefits. The universal basic income, the UBIs, right? That's what you're gonna be put on. But it's a digital system, and it's gonna be, and the way it's gonna work is gonna be through these implanted C hips. It's gonna be it's gonna be logged in, and into these data, into these systems, man, and your C hip's gonna operate with that. That's why everything's, everything, quote unquote, is smart around you now. Smart TV, smart body heating, smart kettle, smart fridges, smart lampposts, smart cities, right? It's just all around us, and it's, these 5G network and the 6G being developed, and that it's all here to relay all that information on a real-time basis, man, to always watch over you. Like it's, but it's trying to protect you, right? It's looking after you, right? Satan's angels exposed. Right. Yeah, so everything's been set up for that purpose, man, to gain control over the people and have you reliant on the system, on the governments, on the elites. And yeah, you're gonna be at the mercy of them, man. And people are gonna have to toe the line. They're gonna have to toe the line, because there ain't gonna be no other options, man. And obviously you're gonna have people, those that are gonna resist and cause all kind of havoc and chaos and that. But these are the type of people that are gonna be given the go ahead to get cut off from the earth, man. Yeah, because it says in verse 15 here, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, those that resist, should be killed. Right. So you're given, or they're going to be given the green light to remove you from the planet. You label terrorists and whatever, man. So that's that on that part. Let's see, where was we? It's Philippians chapter 3 verse 19. It says and give 18. It says, for many walk with whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Yahushua, whose end is destruction. Right? Those that don't want to take heed to this truth, to these words, right? Okay, they're enemies. Because when the time comes, they're not going to support, people like us that believe in these scriptures, man. Okay, the world is going to come against people like us. All right? Because we're going to be a hurdle or some sort of resistance of, of the status quo, of the new status quo, of the order that's been trying to be implemented. And people are going to blame us for, the problems that are taking place. Okay? It says, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, right? And really, you're speaking about the mind, right? But you're using a twofold sense, man. You people are going to be hungry, man. So your mind's going to be all fucked up because you're starving, and you're prepared to do anything at that moment in time. So it's whatever your mind, is on doing, man. The lust of the flesh, that's your carnality. Is your God, whatever you feel like. because most people won't have the integrity of the faith to withstand or go through these things that are going to come upon the earth. So they're going to do whatever suits them, and that's the case for these people now. They just do what they feel like doing. They got their own God in their mind, and what that means. They just do what they feel like doing. Really, it's just the lust of the flesh that they're going after. So when faced with famine and tribulation and these sort of offering food and safety, quote unquote safety or whatever, right? Then you people are just going to go to that. You ain't going to care about what's in these scriptures, even if you call yourself believing in the Bible and all that kind of stuff. You ain't going to care about that. Your God is your belly, man. All right, so you're just going to, like I said, give in to these things. All right, so whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. Yeah, because they're seeking their life to keep it, right? But then they're the ones that are going to lose it. We're the ones that don't give a damn about all of that, man. We will happily offer our lives up to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai if it means for us to be delivered, man. That we keep the faith and be delivered. We're prepared to lose everything, man. We're not trying to hold on to any semblance of this world that we've had, but people always here trying to keep what they got. Trying to keep something of what they got. So they're gonna do what they can to side with what they feel like is the the winning side per se, right? To try and do that, but everybody that sides with Esau is gonna lose. Okay, the hand joining hand, right? They're all gonna lose, man. Anybody that's attached to this world, attached to Egypt, right, is gonna lose, right? Even though it doesn't seem likely in the face of what we're talking about, We're talking about chariots coming down from heaven and saving us. You know what I'm saying? Them things sound unrealistic because it can't be seen, right? Because that's to do with faith, right? So you're gonna go with the more likely option, which is what you can see in your minds is more likely to happen, right? And so you're gonna side with that because all you're gonna be thinking about is preservation for yourself. You're not gonna be thinking about integrity. You're not gonna be thinking about faith. But that's not the job of you people out there in the world. Of course, that's the job for the elect to show those things, to show integrity, to show faith. So, we're gonna find out which is gonna prevail in the end, right? But we know according to the scriptures what that's supposed to be. This is the last one I've got here, right? 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity. Let me jump up. Verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings or princes, and the course of their action shall stand in power. Right? So the world's going to be a complete fucking mess, man. And some order needs to be had. And so these governments are going to step in with brute force at times, right? In order to quell this anarchy, this chaos that's happening, right? And like I said, there'll be lack of food, lack of affordability for food, and lack of all things, right? And like I said, order out of chaos is one of the these elite mottos, right? Order out of chaos, right? So it's planned. They plan for this chaos. They want it to happen, right? So they can exert this control over you. And this is where it's easy to start implementing crazy shit. Yeah, just take the C-hip and it'll be all right. We'll get you some food, we'll get you some water, some medication, and whatever. Oh, why don't you come? Why don't you come here? This to the this I don't know, for lack of better words, military compound. It's safe here. Which is just concentration camps is what I'm getting at, right? Come to this place, this zone here, or whatever. We'll protect you from all the chaos that's outside there. These fucking, these Mad Max types out there, So, they can implement a whole bunch of crap when shit really hits the fan. And that's the plan. But they're introducing the idea of these things in the times of, relative peace. So it doesn't sound so far-fetched, man. So people just easily just jump on board. you know. So yeah, they should not regard their kings or princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, right? And they try and lock you down into these 15-minute cities and whatever. You know, they say, oh yeah, this region, this zone is safe. You know, we have control. You know, it's a under government control. It's safe. Come here, and yeah, that's where you at now. That's where you staying. You ain't coming or going. You know, that's where you're gonna be at, right? But you're gonna feel like these are small things to pay, like safety. You know, small things you got to sacrifice for safety and food and whatever. Just like the Egyptians did in the times of famine, giving up their lands and their horses, their cattle, and that kind of stuff was a small sacrifice so they could eat. So these people are gonna do that. Okay, nothing's changed. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? People act and behave the same way. All right. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Because people are afraid. When you're afraid, man, people make take desperate actions, man. Sometimes illogical, sometimes seemingly logical. But we know logic is not going to be the defining factor of your survival here. You know, it's going to be whether or not the Lord is with you or not. So, you can kind of throw that stuff at that window, man. You have to remain composed and in the spirit in that time, really. But people are going to do crazy things because of that desperation, for that fear. All right. So the man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Right. So these people are just going to go buck wild when there ain't no food, man. They're going to be running up in people's houses and killing people that they know. And you'll be begging the government to kind of put an end to this or to try and do something about this, man. And then the government's gonna be like, well, we got this, and we got this we've been working on, right? We got this new system in place, and people are gonna be like, yeah, please, anything. Where the world falls apart. But like I said, these are just signs of things to come. We'll get there eventually, man. Though it tarry not, right? And we see it, man. We're not bothered. We're not bothered about how long it's taken. We see it's happening. Like it's present. It's present with us, man. So we're not bothered how long it's taken. It's present with us, man. All these prophecies coming to pass. It's present with us. Seeing the direction where the world is going in. All the signs, right? We're reading the signs. So we're not off put by how long things taken. Yeah, we might not be out here this year. Maybe next year. Maybe the year after that. Who knows? But we're not bothered by that. We're not deterred on our mission. Okay, we see everything that's happening. We know where it's going. Okay, it's just for you to you're gonna have to find out. But anyway, I'm gonna end it there. Lord, when this is edifying, and I'll catch you, brothers and sisters, on the next video. So till next time, I say shalom.